Hello everybody, Elias5891 here with another KTANE module tutorial. This time we're covering the Superlogic module. Superlogic uses the same stuff as logic. Looks like this. You got ABC, which can be toggled on and off. Green is on, green is on, red is off or false. You want to find the one pattern out of the 8, which will make all the sentences true, and then submit it with this unlabeled button up top. Now, if you have an expert who's comfortable with logic gates, this is easy for an expert, if you have a diffuser who's good with logic gates, this is easy for a diffuser to solo. If not, they can give this to an expert and the expert can work on it too. However, they probably won't want this manual page, they'll probably want the one for logic. Here. Because we're going to be using these symbols in addition to one additional one, the not, or the negator operator. That's this one right here in B and in C. It just takes the opposite of whatever comes after it. So if B is actually false, then this part here is true. So, how do we go about doing this one? Well, there's a couple different ways. What I personally like to do, first off, let's give this to the expert. Assume we're going to do it as an expert. Well, let's read it out. We have A is B or C. B is not C, and I'm going to use an exclamation to indicate not. X nor A. C is A or not B. For me, when I like to do this one, what I like to do is if I see something that only has like one true or one false statement, I try to choose the rare option because that kind of forces everything else, and see if it works out. If it does, great. If not, then I've eliminated an option. So in this case, let's look at A. A equals B or C. Well, that's going to be true if B is true, or if C is true, or if both are true. The only time that this statement could be false is if B and C are both false. Then it's false or false, which gives me a false. So, let's kind of make that supposition and see what happens on that assumption. If A is false, then B is false, and C is false, which would give me a false here, and a false here. So let's see if this makes sense. For C, we would get A, false, or not B. B is false, so not B would be true. Is false or true false? No, it's not. So we have a contradiction here. For A to be false, C has to be false, but if C is false, then we get B has to be true so that not B becomes false. So this doesn't work out. So this assumption here that A is false, that's got to be wrong. A has to be true. We know that to be a fact. So, let's clear this. Let's clear this. These were suppositions. So let's work from there. Okay, A is true. 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 Well, C is A or not B. A is true. So it's true or something. Well, we know what true or something is. That has to be true. So we get C is true. Well, we know C is true, so now up here, not C, that's going to become false. So we have false, XNOR, true. What is an XNOR? Well, an XNOR returns false if exactly one of the inputs is true. Exactly one of the inputs is true, so this is going to come out to be a false. An XNORs kind of do these match. And in this case, not C and A do not match. Not C is false, A is true, so the XNOR is false. And there we have our answer. True, false, true, or A and C are true. So we make A and C turn green. We push the button, and we've solved one. Let's do another one. These are ones that are good to practice to get comfortable with. Ooh, this is going to be a little more complicated. I like it. A equals C NAND not B. B equals C XOR not A. C equals not A implies B. Okay. Well, again, we've got 3 of them. Can we find one where we can make a supposition that kind of forces the other two letters? Well, we can. A NAND is easy enough to force. NAND gives us false if and only if all of the inputs are true. So we could make the assumption A is false, but that's only going to be true if both the inputs are true, which would mean C would have to be true and not B would have to be true. If this is the case, what do we get? Well, we get B would be false in this case, since not B is true. And C, well, C was by itself, so C would become true. Let's see if this works out. B equals C would be true, XOR not A. We said A was false, so not A would be true. So, true, XOR true. XOR returns true if exactly 1 is true, otherwise it gives a false. We don't have exactly 1 being true, so that would return a false, so B works out. Let's see if C works out. Not A is true, implies B is false. Is true implies false a true statement? It's not. True implies false gives me a false answer. So, this example doesn't work out. C can't be true, which it would need to if A is false. So, there's our contradiction. But hey, contradictions are fine. If we get one, we know that A can't be false, so A has to be true. So, A is true, which means not A here becomes false, means not A here becomes false. What does this give us? Well, for C now we have false implies something. False implies anything is always going to be a true statement. The implies is only false when it's true implies false. So, since we have false implies something, we've got a true statement here. I said A was, yep, that's right. So we know C is true. So we have for B, true, XOR false. XOR is true if exactly 1 is true. Is exactly 1 true? Yes. C is, but not A is not. So we have 1 true. So this one also comes out to be true, giving us green, green, green for our answer. Okay, one more like this. Boop. A equals B or not C. Oh my gosh, this one's easy. B equals not A or C. C equals not B or A. That C's a little interesting. Kind of throws a slight wrench into it, but still, this should be easy. Again, let's go with our proof by contradiction. Let's work with A again. A has an OR statement. OR statement is true if either part is true, so for it to be false, I have to have false or false. That means B would be false, and C would be true. Now, so I'm lowercasing the ones that I'm guessing on. So for B, that would be not false, that's true, or C is true. Is true or true what we said B is? False. No. So this does not float. This does not work. So, contradiction already. Don't even have to look at C. A has to be true. That's confirmed. Well, we know A is true, so this is going to be a false here. And down here, that's going to be a false here. Well, we still can't say for sure about the other two. So let us work by a process of deduction elimination again. Let's say B comes out to be true. For B to be true, this part was false, so we need at least one of the two parts to be true. So that would give me a true for C. So true on B means C has to be true. That would give us C is equal to not B or A. B is true or A is false. true or false gives me a true, but we're going to not the whole thing, so we're going to change it from a true to a false, so C would need to be false, and that doesn't fly either. Okay, well, that's fine. So that assumption of that being true doesn't work, so B has to be false. Okay, that's fine. Well, now we've got two parts. So we have not, false, or true. False or true still gives me a true. Nodding that gives me a false still, so I get C as false. And let's see if that makes sense. A equals false or not C. C is false, so not C would be true. False or true is true. For B, that's not A, false, or C, false. That should give me a false. It does. And for this one, it's not false or true. False or true gives me true. Nodding it gives me false. This looks good. Answer is A only. Green, red, red. I said one more. I'm going to do this last one as well, and then I'm going to give you an example or two. Last one. A equals not C and B. B equals not C and A. Ew. C equals B XNOR not A. Also an EU. This one's going to be probably the hardest one we've done. Well, of these, A is obviously the easiest one to make an assumption on. It's an AND statement, so there's only one way to get a true, and that is to assume both parts give me true. For both parts to give me true, B would have to be true, and C would have to be false. Let's see if that works. C, we would get true XNOR false. XNOR is true if they match. They don't, so it gives me a false, which is what I wanted. I wanted a false for C, so that looks good. How about B? We'd have not, false, NAND, true. False, NAND, true. NAND is false if they're both true. It's true otherwise. This is not they're both true, so this is going to give me a true. We're not true, so we're false. B is false. Contradiction, we said B had to be true. So, contradiction. Our initial supposition was not correct, as usual. A is false, which means I have a false here, and which means I have a true here. Again, a little tricky to just jump to the answer from here, so let's make another supposition. Let's say C is true. It's an XNOR, so if I have a true... okay, so we're going to say C is true. That would give me true NAND false, which is going to be true. We're going to not it, and that'll give me a false for B. So if we say C is true, plug that in. True NAND false is true, not true is false. So we would get B is false. Does this work? False XNOR true. XNOR is false if one is true. It's true if they're different. They are not different, so this is a contradiction, which means that is not what C is. Strike two. C is false. Well, since we know what A and C are, B should be easier now. We get false NAND false. False NAND false actually gives, let's see, it gives, oh wait, it gives true, like everything else does. Not true is going to be false. So we're left with three falses this time. Let's double check that. A equals not C, true, and false. That's definitely false. B gives me not false NAND false. False NAND false is true. Not true is false. That works. Last one, false XNOR true. That's false if one is true, so it's true if they're the same. They're not, so that's false. That looks good. False, 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 all red. And that finishes up a Superlogic. Now, this is a good one to practice. So I'm going to pull up another bomb with 5 of them. I'm going to leave them on screen, and then I'm going to give you a chance to solve them. Because this is one where practice makes perfect. Practice is good. Practice is your friend. 5, front face only. Let's dive right in. So here are your Superlogics. I will not read them all to you. There's a lot of them. I will just let you examine them. Go ahead, pause the video. Figure out what answers you get for all of these. And then I'm not going to go through and solve all of them. You saw me solve 5. You see how I do it. It's a matter of guessing and checking, essentially. Although I did say I would do one kind of on the fly. So let's look at the top right one. What I like to do is I turn them all red. I figure out one that has a weird case. How about this one? B equals A is implied by C, or C implies A. That's almost certainly true. The only exception, the only way for this to be false, is if I have true implies false, which would be C, true implies false. Does this work? Well, B works, that's how we got this supposition. This would be not true, so false, or false yields false. Well, that's accurate. False implies false, that's a true, but we're going to not it. So that would be false. That doesn't work, because we already said C was true. Does not work, does not compute. B has to be true. Well, if B is true, something or B, well, that's going to be true. And then we can jump down here. True implies true is true. We're going to not it, so that's false. And we're done with that one. You notice it does turn green when you solve it correctly. That's a nice touch. So that sort of idea is how I go through and solve my stuff. So actually, yeah, let's see if I can zoom through some of the rest of these. Here, A, we have an OR on top. So worst case scenario, this is false if this part is false and this part is false. Let's see if that works. We would get C implies A. That's false. You can't do true implies false. That's your one fail condition on implies. Not false would be true. That's a contradiction. So this thought I had for A doesn't work. So A has to be true. Which means one of these two sections is going to be true. But which one? Well, I have something implies true. Something implies true is always true. That never gives me a false. So I have not true, which is false. B has to be false. If B is false and A is true, A is something or false, then this part has to be true. So not C is true, so C itself is false. A equals C or B. Well, let's go through the same process. Let's say A is false, that means B and C have to be false. For B, we get false imply, well, nope, that doesn't work. That would be a true statement because false implies is always okay. So A has to be true. Let's look at C here though. We have A or not B. We know A has to be true, so does C. And then we can just plug into B. True implies false. That does not work. That's false. So B stays red. Red is false. This one, same principle yet again. This time we're doing it with B. If B is false, then C and A both have to be false. In that case, we have not A, that's a true, NAND false. True NAND false is true, however, so this is a contradiction. B has to be true. This one going to be a little trickier. We're going to have to do 2 levels of suppositions. Happens sometimes. Let's say C. Let's say this part is right. We would have on the bottom C equals true, NAND, true. True, NAND, true would give me a false. So this part works as is. False equals true, not false. So true, NAND, true. Does the top work? A equals B XOR C. XOR is true if exactly one is true, that's true. But we're nodding it, so we're going to make that true thing a false. A is false as well. This works out. No, it doesn't. Where did we error? Oh, we didn't give either A or C a truth to fix the B part. That's why you gotta be careful when you do this yourself. One of these two has to be true, if not both. Let's make C true. Then for C, we have true equals true, NAND, true. That doesn't work, so we'd have to make A true as well. If C is true, A is true. That makes that work. And then up here, B XOR C, that comes out to be false. We nod a false, that gives us the true. There we go. Last one. Oh, I see an and. Ands are great. Okay, so for B to be true, I need C to be true. Boop. And I need not A to be true. Boop. So this is our assumption that B is green. Green is true. Well, what is A? A is not C, so false, XOR true. False XOR true is true. That's not what I have A marked as. Contradiction. B has to be false. Okay, if B is false, does that tell me anything about these other two? Not directly, because XORs are a pain in the butt. So let's work another assumption. We know B has to be false. So let's say C is true. That means A would have to be true as well, because if C is true and A is false, that gives us the sort of contradiction we had earlier. B would be true in this case. So this doesn't work, this combination. So let's see if the C part with a true A works. Not C is false, B is false. False XOR false is false. No. But then that's going to lead to a problem down here, or to B. So C has to be false. If B is false and C is false, not false is true, false, true, XOR false is true, and we got an answer. Now that one was kind of a weird one to talk through. But really, the whole principle, the general idea you're going to do every time. Find something that you can make a guess on. Work that guess out. And either A, you've solved it, you guessed right, or B, you ran into a contradiction, in which case, go back to your original guess, know that it was wrong, change that one, and see what that does for the rest of your module. But anyway, this is Superlogic. This is how it goes, this is how it looks, this is how it works. And with this, I'm going to wrap that one up. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, or suggestions, leave them down below as always. And until next time, guys, this has been Eliott. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Don't explode. Bye now.